The girl no one would help the cafeteria of Outpost 9 was loud and bright. Hundreds of voices filled the air, mixed with the smell of cooked meals from dozens of alien kitchens. Plates clattered, drinks hissed, laughter echoed. It was the kind of place where strangers could eat side by side without speaking. Unless someone became the center of attention. In the far corner, at a small metal table, sat a thin alien girl. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and glassy, her clothes worn and patched. Her name was Lyra. She sat with her hands in her lap, staring at the empty surface in front of her. She had no food. In her pocket. She carried a small food credit chip, the last one she had. She had stood in line earlier, but when she tapped it at the payment terminal, the screen flashed. Invalid nitrogen monoxide funds. The cashier, a four-armed insectoid, had shrugged and waved her away. Behind her, other customers muttered impatiently. One or two laughed. No one offered to help. Now she sat alone, stomach aching, pretending she didn't hear the whispers from nearby tables. She's been here all week, one alien muttered. Does she ever pay for anything? Refugee trash, another voice said. Her people always expect handouts. Laura's hands tightened to fists under the table. She kept her head down. She knew better than to answer. The last time she had spoken back, a group of locals had followed her into the corridors and stolen the little food she had managed to get. Her homeworld was gone, burned in a border war between two empires she had never even met. Her family was gone. She had escaped in a crowded freighter and then dropped here, in a station that promised safety but gave only indifference. Her stomach growled loudly. She pressed her arms against it, as if that would make the sound disappear. Across the room, at a table near the wall, a human man was watching. He had been sitting there quietly, eating his own meal, a plate stacked with steaming noodles and fried protein strips. He had seen the way the cashier had sent Laura away. He had heard the laughter from the other tables. Humans were rare on Outpost 9. Most species avoided them, calling them unpredictable, dangerous, too willing to fight over things that weren't their problem. And yet, this human stood. He walked across the cafeteria, his boots heavy on the metal floor. The chatter around them began to fade as eyes turned to watch. Laura didn't look up until a shadow fell across her table. She saw the human's hand set down a full tray in front of her. Soup, bread, something fried and golden, a tall glass of water. Her throat tightened. I can't pay you, she said softly. I didn't ask for payment, the human said. His voice was calm, steady. Come eat with me. The cafeteria went silent for a heartbeat. From a nearby table, a reptilian alien snorted. Careful, human, feed a stray, and they'll follow you forever. A few others chuckled. Someone whispered, humans? Always sticking their noses where they don't belong. The human ignored them. He simply picked up the tray and nodded toward his table. Laura hesitated, fear and hunger pulling her in opposite directions. Finally, she stood and followed him. At his table, he slid half the food toward her. Eat, he said. She picked up the bread with trembling hands. The first bite was so warm it almost made her cry. She tried to eat slowly, but her hunger wouldn't let her. The human said nothing for a while, letting her eat. Then, quietly, he asked, "What's your name?" "Laura," she said between bites. "I'm Jack." It was a simple exchange, but in that moment, it felt like the first kind word she'd heard in weeks. Still, she didn't notice the way several figures near the door were watching them with narrowed eyes. Nor did she see the small, mocking smiles as one of them muttered, "Looks like the human made a new friend. Let's see how long that lasts." Asterisk a meal, a bond, and a warning. Laura had not eaten so well in weeks. The soup was rich and hot, the bread soft, the fried pieces crunchy and full of flavor. She finished every bite, embarrassed at how quickly she ate. But Jack only gave a small smile. They sat in a corner of the cafeteria where the noise was a little quieter. Jack spoke little, letting her eat in peace. When she was done, she pushed the empty plate away and whispered, "Thank you." Jack shrugged. "It's just food. Everyone needs to eat." Lyra looked at him for a moment. "Not everyone thinks that way." He gave a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. "No, I suppose not." The story she didn't want to tell, they talked a little after that. Jack learned that Lyra had been on Outpost 9 for just over a month. She had no job, no credits, and the refugee office kept delaying her requests for aid. Her people, the Tsari, had been scattered across dozens of systems after their homeworld was destroyed in the war. Jack didn't ask about her family, and Lyra was glad. That was a wound she couldn't touch without breaking Dot and return Jack. Told her he was a cargo runner, moving supplies between far-off colonies and dangerous frontier posts. He didn't belong to any big company. He worked for himself, which meant no one told him what jobs to take or who to help, the unwanted attention as they spoke. Jack kept glancing toward the far side of the cafeteria. Lyra noticed it too. A group of rough-looking station locals sitting together. They were watching, not even pretending to hide it. Their eyes followed her and Jack the way predators followed prey. When the two of them finally stood to leave, Jack leaned down slightly and said quietly, "Stay close to me." Lyra's heart skipped. Why? "Because those guys aren't looking at you like you're just another refugee," Jack said. "They're looking at you like you're an easy target, and they think I'm a problem that can be removed." Through the corridors, they left the cafeteria, walking through the dim service corridors that ran along the back of the station's main levels. The air here smelled of oil and dust. The hum of machinery was louder, and the lighting was weak, flickering now and then. Jack walked on her right, keeping himself between her and the shadows. "Does this happen a lot?" Lyra asked softly. Jack nodded. "People see someone alone, someone who looks like they won't fight back, and they take advantage. Doesn't matter if it's a refugee camp or a trade station. Scum is scum anywhere." Lyra frowned. "So why help me? You don't even know me." Jack glanced at her, his expression calm but firm. "I don't need to know you. Deserve to eat. That's enough for me." The first warning, they were halfway down the corridor when heavy footsteps echoed behind them. Jack didn't look back right away. He kept walking, his pace steady. "3 of them," he said quietly. "Don't turn around." Lyra's chest tightened. "What do they want?" Jack's voice was low and certain. "Trouble." The footsteps slowed, and then a rough voice called out from behind them. "Hey, human, you forgot to pay the toll." Jack stopped walking. He turned halfway, just enough to see them. 3 men, 2 reptilians and a tall, wide-shouldered mammal with patchy fur, stood blocking the corridor. They wore mismatched armor and carried stun batons. Jack's tone stayed calm. "There's no toll in this corridor." The tall one grinned, showing sharp teeth. "There is now. Leave the girl, and maybe we'll let you walk away." Lyra's pulse pounded in her ears. She stepped back instinctively, but Jack shifted to keep himself in front of her. His voice didn't rise, but there was steel in it now. "That's not happening," the leader laughed. "Then you're going to regret." Jack's hand twitched toward his side, just enough for Lyra to notice. He didn't draw a weapon, but the way he moved made the 3 men hesitate. The tall one narrowed his eyes. "Careful, human. This station isn't your territory." Jack took a slow step forward. "It is right now." For a moment, no one moved. Then the 3 backed away, muttering curses, before disappearing down another corridor. Jack turned back to Lyra. "They'll be back," he said simply. "Stay close to me until we leave this station." And for the first time in weeks, Lyra felt a strange mix of fear and safety, Fear of what might happen next, but safety in knowing this human wouldn't walk away. Under human protection the next day, the station felt different. Laura stayed near Jack as they moved between the docking bays and the small market stalls. She could still feel the eyes on her. The same group from the cafeteria was watching from a distance. Jack didn't comment. He carried himself like someone who wasn't worried, but Laura noticed the way he always walked on the side facing the crowd. Keeping her in the safer space that the ambush happened in one of the maintenance corridors near the cargo level. The lighting was dim, and the sound of footsteps echoed strangely off the metal walls. From ahead, two figures stepped into view, blocking the way. Behind them, more footsteps. The three bullies from yesterday had returned, this time with friends. 6 in total. The tall, fur-covered one smiled in a way that made Laura's stomach turn. "We warned you yesterday, human. You didn't listen." Jack stepped slightly forward, putting himself between them and Laura. His voice was calm, but there was a weight to it. "You made a mistake coming back." The reptilian beside the leader laughed. "You think you can take all of us? This isn't a human war zone, friend. No one here cares what happens to you." Jack's eyes narrowed. "That's where you're wrong." The fight had happened fast. The tall leader raised his stun baton, and before it came down, Jack was already moving. A sharp step forward, a twist of the wrist, the baton clattered to the floor. The leader stumbled back, clutching his arm. The second attacker lunged, but Jack sidestepped, slamming his elbow into the alien's side. The corridor erupted in chaos. 2 more rushed in, swinging metal pipes. Jack dropped low, sweeping one off his feet, then drove his shoulder into the other, sending him crashing into the wall. Every move was precise, controlled. No wasted motion, no wild swings. Jack fought like someone who had been in more fights than he could count, and won them all. Within seconds, the 6 attackers were either on the floor, groaning, or backing away in fear. The warning Jack straightened, breathing evenly. He looked at the leader, who was now leaning against the wall, holding his injured arm. "This is the last time," Jack said quietly. "If I see you near her again, it won't end with bruises." The leader glared, but there was no fight left in him. Without another word, they scrambled away into the shadows. Laura's realization for a moment. The corridor was silent except for Laura's heartbeat. She stepped forward, still trying to find her voice. You could have killed them," she said. Jack looked at her, his expression steady. "Didn't need to. Winning isn't about destroying the other person. It's about making sure they never come back." She swallowed. Why risk this for me? You don't owe me anything." Jack's reply was simple. "Because you needed someone to stand in the way, and I was there." Under human protection, when they reached the docking bay, several station workers were whispering and pointing. The news of the fight had already spread. One worker muttered to another, "She's with the human now. No one's going to touch her." Laura felt something she hadn't felt since before the war. Safety. It wasn't the safety of walls or guards. It was the safety of knowing someone would fight for her without hesitation. Jack was loading cargo into his ship when he glanced at her. "If you want, I can take you to the next system. There's work there and fewer people who think refugees are easy prey." She hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Yes, I'd like that." The closing image hours later, as the ship left Outpost 9, Laura stood by the viewport, watching the station shrink into the distance. For the first time in weeks, the emptiness in her stomach was gone, not just from food, but from knowing she wasn't alone anymore. Jack's voice came from behind her. "You're under human protection now, Laura, and that means one thing. You won't starve, and you won't be alone, ever again." In the dark silence of space, those words felt like a promise.